All right, everyone, welcome to another Meet the Team call. And we got a really special one today. Why don't we give a big warm welcome to Aubrey, our Chief of Staff here at Shakepay. Aubrey, welcome, man.
Hey man, how's it going?
It's going great, going good. I love how we all have matching PFP profiles now. It's
I
amazing.
know, I know. I'm super excited. Lulu just kind of made me one today, and I finally feel part of the club. To be honest,
You almost need it's like a rite of passage at ShakePay to get the personalized PFP and be part of the meet the team call.
it
Now
is.
you're in the club, man.
I know, man. I'm just like ecstatic.
Awesome. Aubrey, why don't we tell everyone a little bit about your role? Like, what is the chief of staff?
Sure. Maybe I could start by saying what it's not, because it's kind of a bit of confusing role, or not one that maybe people aren't super familiar with it. So it's not HR. A lot of people, when they hear chief of staff for the first time, they hear the word staff, they think that it's HR. Has nothing really to do with it with people or HR. Chief of staff is kind of a role that comes from politics, right? So if you watch, I don't know, like West Wing or whatever political shows, you'll probably come across chiefs of staff. Then they're usually like chiefs of staff to someone, so chief of staff to the president, for example, or chief of staff to like some kind of senior military officer. Um, so yeah, so it was very popular in politics. And in politics, it's kind of like the link between that person, right, like the president and the organization, and kind of deals with managing the priorities of the president and whatnot. And yeah, and then it kind of became more and more popular in we just implemented like objectives and metrics. Anything that's new, I'm kind of I guess the person that will try to take it from nothing and turn it into something, and then hand it off to someone else in the organization who's better suited to take it from one to n. So that's
Right.
a big part of the role, and then another part of the role that I don't know, kind of it's kind of morphed into this is I'll kind of take on um, or I'll fill in gaps in our organization as we scale. So as the company grows, we don't necessarily have all the people that we need at the right time, right? Like sometimes there's gaps there,
Yeah.
and so I've kind of filled in a few gaps so far. So I was uh, first in comms, and now I'm filling in marketing as well.
And we're so glad to have you there. You're making things happen and bringing the whole team together. So it's amazing. Um,
Thanks.
Yeah, Aubrey. Um, why don't you tell everyone about how you found ShakePay and a little bit about your background? Because I mean, how do you get into the chief of staff position?
Yeah, really good question. Maybe I'll like kind of jump through my background real quickly, and then we can dig wherever you think might be interesting, and then we can
Yeah,
jump
yeah,
into how I got to ShakePay. So yeah, so my background is in university. Didn't really like school very much. Didn't go to class very much. Got into too many arguments with my teachers and and whatnot, and I kind of discovered startups, and got really into I went to Concordia, and there's an incubator next to Concordia called D3. Got into that, tried to launch my own project, didn't work. Got involved with some other companies. I worked in early stage startups during university, mostly in growth related roles. And then I graduated university, ended up graduating, and graduated into a role in management consulting. So I was a strategy and operations consultant. For those who aren't aware, it's kind of like a very corporate job where I don't know if you've ever seen House of Lies, I believe is the show, but you're kind of like, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like a doctor for companies. So you go into a company and they have a problem, and then you kind of diagnose the problem and help them solve the problem. And so yeah, I did that for about a year and a half. Rage quit, I would say, after about
Rage.
a year and a half. And then I basically taught myself how to code and built an app, because I something I really wanted to, like, I had a problem I really wanted to solve. And then through that experience, I was getting really into to Bitcoin. I had been exposed to Bitcoin many times before in my life, but this was the first time that I, had started taking it more seriously and started reading a lot more about it and actually putting some of my own money into it. And yeah, just kind of started going down the rabbit hole and got completely absorbed by Bitcoin and obsessed with it. And so when it became clear that my app wasn't really going anywhere, um, yeah, I kind of took the turn and said, okay, I want to work for a Bitcoin company. And my girlfriend actually was the one who pointed out a role at Shakepay. It wasn't the chief of staff role, actually. It was another role. And then um, yeah, I mean, I remember being on I'd reached out to Anthony, who was one of our recruiters,
Yeah.
saying like, "Hey, I think you'd be great for this product role," and I knew I wasn't qualified for the role, right? But I made a big slide deck, so I think he thought, okay, this guy is like clearly dedicated, wants to get into the company. So yeah, I was about to go into the call with him, and 2 minutes before the call, I was like, okay, well, I know I'm not qualified for this role. Maybe maybe I should take a look at some of the other roles in case he tells me, it's not going to work for that product role. So I started looking at some of the other ones, and then chief of staff kind of popped out, and I knew that there were I knew of other former consultants who had transitioned into chief of staff roles, but I really didn't know much about the role, so I just knew the name, right? And then
Right.
the call with Anthony, as expected, he was like, "Yeah, you're not really qualified for this product role, but I like your ambition, you know." And then I'm like, "Okay, well, what about this chief of staff role?" And again, I didn't know really anything about it. And he's like, "Oh yeah, like maybe that could work." And let me get back to you. And then he ended up getting back to me and did went through the interview process and really really I think connected uh, with everybody, and the rest is history.
Wow. Wow. So much to take apart there. There was yeah, did you say that you started by rage quitting your corporate job? What happened there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah,
literal rage quit? Just I'm out.
yeah,
Go
man.
away.
Like I was in the middle of a meeting, and it was one of these I forget exactly what had happened, but it was one of these very slow meetings. It was clear that I think someone just hadn't done their homework before the meeting, someone more senior, and I just got kind of I had been getting a little frustrated, and to be honest, I never felt at home in a big kind of corporate environment. It's just my personality. I really don't like having too much like rigidity and structure, and it's very formal. You have to wear a suit and all this
Yeah.
and yeah, and I just kind of but I wanted to get the learning. I was getting really good, at least learning out of the experience. And yeah, but in the middle of the meeting, I was just like I remember just like throwing off my my earbuds or my headset or whatever, and I turned to look at my girlfriend. I'm like, I'm done. Like I'm quitting. And then that same afternoon, I told my manager and the partner that I
That
was
you
quitting.
made a few apps. Whoa, tell us about that. Like, what did you build? This is new.
Yeah, yeah. So after I quit corporate, I at the time I was living a very unhealthy lifestyle. It was affecting my health. I was like, okay, well, I kind of wanted to get back into the early stage startup arena, and I kind of had this problem I wanted to solve. So I was like, okay, well, I'll try to solve the problem. And then I was like, well, I've always kind of wanted to learn how to code. I've always wanted to learn how to code, and I was like, now I finally have the time to dedicate to learning. So why don't I just teach myself how to code and build this app that I wanted to build? So yeah, I just kind of started. Um, like I knew a bit of Python already, more for data analytics purposes, but I got started learning JavaScript. So I learned the syntax, and then kind of got into just kind of broke down the problem into smaller and smaller chunks. Learned the back end, learned front end. I built a Mern stack app that was like a book club app. So I had a book. This is at the start of COVID, so lockdown. I was a part of a book club with some of my friends just to keep us entertained during that hectic period. And yeah, I was like, okay, well, I might as well just build us an app to kind of coordinate our schedules and vote on books and things like that. Very basic app, a very
Dude,
ugly app, but I built that, and then that was kind of like my capstone project that I used to then build the health app that I was talking about. So yeah, I built two apps. That one, which is a kind of Mern stack, and then the other one, which is a React Native Firebase stack.
whoa. And for just the audience here that may not know, what is a MERN stack and, React
Yeah.
Native? Yeah, 'cause I think that a lot of people just
my
go off
my
gig.
girlfriend's laughing in the background. Her name is Myrna, so she really enjoys this stack. But I shouldn't say identifiable things. Anyways, yeah, MernStack is MongoDB database, Express server, React like front end framework, and shit. What's the end? I forget. Anyways, you can check my GitHub. I promise I've used the stack. And then
Very
React
cool.
Native Firebase is like a serverless. Oh yeah, Node. Yeah, Node. Of course. Yeah, sorry, Node. Node is the end. And so yeah,
That is very, very cool. I find that super interesting. I've been through my own personal experience, try to build my app, a personal app, a project a long time ago. So I know those challenges and trying to teach yourself how to code step by step. Um, what other struggles did you go through? Trying to get this off the ground, and then how does that kind of correlate back to your work here at Shakepay? Was did it help you?
yeah, for sure. I think that that whole experience, both like learning how to code and then um, building the apps itself, it's two different experiences. But I think the 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 skill set that I took from that experience that I kind of have in my toolkit now is like just being able to solve big like hairy problems that you know nothing about, and being to say, okay, I know I want this end goal, and then kind of
Mhm.
breaking that problem down into smaller, more achievable chunks, and then just kind of tackling them one by one. It's really this kind of like taking idea, going from just raw idea all the way through to execution, and to bringing it to life. I think that skill is like, that's the main skill that I took from that experience. Even if the app wasn't itself successful, didn't get much traction, just being able to go from idea all the way to reality, and kind of being grounded in reality, and understanding the constraints of reality, and understanding that often execution and being able to execute is often much more important than the actual idea itself.
Yeah.
um, yeah, that experience was, or that skill, I think, is super helpful, and it's super helpful in my role today at Shakepay. And like, I do the same process, right? Whenever there's a big kind of problem, literally did this week, where whenever there's a big problem that is kind of complex, I just go to whatever note app I have, and I just break it down into smaller and smaller bullet points. I did that when I was thinking of how to build the app, and I do the exact same thing in my job today. So that's kind of probably the main skill that I learned from the experience.
Incredible. Yeah, and those are the kind of skills that you can't just read from a textbook or pick up from, you know, audit end things. You really need to go through the process and live that experience to get that. So,
Exactly. No, exactly. It's all about the execution, right? Like the theory. Yeah, I think this is. And I've spoken to this about it with many people at ShakePay before. I think this is extremely important, right? It's not like yeah, what is it? The Mike Tyson quote. It's like everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face, and like the real fun starts when you get punched in the face, and the real skill is about bringing things to life. The theory is just nothing
that, yeah,
in theory actually ends up working out in that perfect way in reality. The skill is kind of pushing through and making shit happen.
yeah, yeah, dude. I feel that. I feel like I've gone through some similar struggles and realizations through my course.
Well, you
Um,
must have had that when you learned the meme stack. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and
Awesome.
a lot of difficulties and a lot of, sleepless nights trying to figure stuff out and, what to show for it, not necessarily a working, functioning, great app, but, those skills that I picked up along the way, they're timeless, and
Yeah, that's right. It's like I'll never be a horrible coder. Like obviously,
yeah,
never really
exactly.
not very good. But it's the skill you learn out of the experience that is important, I think.
Yes, yes. Now let's bring it back. You had mentioned that during your kind of phase from the corporate job and into the startup world, you discovered Bitcoin. Um, Tell me about that. Like, how did that happen? Were you introduced by a friend, or did you kind of just stumble upon it?
Yeah, my Bitcoin experience is kind of a bumpy ride, I would say. Like I remember, I think the first time I ever heard about Bitcoin was I think it was in my first semester at university. So I'm dating myself, but goes back to 2014, and
Oh,
it was yeah, full of regrets. Let me tell you my experience. So yeah, it was like a class presentation. Someone was presenting Bitcoin in class, and I just remember thinking like, this is the dumbest thing I have ever heard about. And obviously, I was the dumb one in retrospect. But yeah, that was my first exposure to Bitcoin, and then I was working in startups in 2017 at an incubator, and this is at the height of the first kind of Bitcoin
Bull run.
call it a yeah run. I
Yeah.
like that we're not saying the use word bubble, but run. And yeah, I just seeing how people were talking about it, and you really, I'd heard about people talking about the 99, tech bubble, and just how people were the vibe, right? And I kind of got that feeling from what was going on around me, and so I got kind of scammy vibes. So I was kind of turned off from it my first two exposures, but then a buddy of mine who I've worked with previously, he got really into it after that um, after 2017. He got really into it, and yeah, about the time I was in between my job, my corporate job in Shakepay.
Mm.
We'd sometimes go on long walks together, and he would tell me about it, and he'd send me videos and stuff. And this was kind of like my first foray into the rabbit hole, and yeah, just kind of slowly but surely got, because I think what's beautiful about Bitcoin is that it just makes you question the things that you consider to be like primitives in your life, right? Like money, I just thought was like this basic concept that couldn't change, and then just kind of, when you start asking yourself questions about what related to to something so fundamental, it's really like an intellectual yeah, it just makes, you get very curious, and you start googling things, and
Yeah.
if you're a curious person, it's like a really fun and really engaging journey. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into Bitcoin.
Eyes opened. It's an eye opener. I completely agree. The more serious you get with Bitcoin, the more you learn about all of these other things, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, that's right. It's the things that are tangential, I think, to Bitcoin that are the most interesting, right? It's like, it's not necessarily about you start off trying to learn about Bitcoin, and then you end up learning about all these other topics that are
Yes.
related to Bitcoin. And this just gives you better frameworks to deal with the world at the same time. So that's why it's kind of such a thrilling experience.
Now that you're completely orange pilled, and thank God to your friend who seemed like he orange pilled you
Yeah, yeah.
recently. Why do you think Bitcoin is really important now, especially so?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin, money. I'm a bit. Well, I used to read more of his stuff than now, but I used to read a lot of Yuval Noah Harari, who's a fantastic author. He's written author of *Sapiens* and *Homo Deus*. Strongly recommend those books. And one of his one of the main concepts that comes out of his work is this idea of the intersubjective. So he kind of, what he says is, like, humans, what separates humans from other animals is our ability to collaborate in very large numbers. And the way
Mm.
that we're able to achieve this is that we have these shared delusions. And he uses some examples of, like, a country, right? There is no such thing as Canada, right? Like, it's just this idea that's kind of this software that's running in all of our heads, right? And I think money is the concept that has the most potential to enable, like, global collaboration. But this idea of money is susceptible to distortion, right? Like this pure idea of, like, yeah, I'm gonna, work and be compensated for that and store that somewhere and then use that however I want. It's not a pure, idea. It gets distorted in so many ways, because of the mechanics of how money gets created, right?
Right.
And um and so, yeah, that's why I think Bitcoin is incredibly important, because it's kind of like, like, if people can make more money, they will make more money. And if people can, prevent access to certain people, to money, to certain people, they will manipulate the money printer or access to the financial system, if it benefits them, right? And so we need it. I think Bitcoin is um, important because it's really like the most perfect form of money that we've ever created, because you can't do any of these things. You
Okay.
can't corrupt it in many ways. So yeah,
Unifying
that's
everybody.
what's that.
Like, it's like a unifying money that, yeah, can't be corrupted.
Yeah, it restores this, this kind of, if you were to have a naive idea of money, like, as just not susceptible to inflation, accessible to everyone. Bitcoin is that,
Yeah.
right? So in a way, it kind of restores trust. Like it restore you can have trust in the future. Like I can trust that I can work and generate money and then store that economic energy in an airtight way that isn't corruptible, right? Like it's mine. It's like I this is the most pure form of ownership and of property rights, and this is like a fundamental human right, I believe. Like this fundamentally is the most important thing, right? And you see societies flourish when people, historically, when people have been given property rights.
Yeah, more
Um,
power. Absolutely.
yeah. So yeah, I think it allows us to, and this is why I love Shakepay and our mission, because our mission is very um, is really built on some of these concepts, right? Um, Especially the one that a lot like about us trusting the future and and yeah saving and for the future, and obviously time having a low time preference.
Yep.
So yeah, those are my thoughts on Bitcoin.
Dude, you just, like, re-orange pilled me. Yeah. And I would ask for you to please, like, link those books that you mentioned, the author, and maybe, a couple of the books for the audience here, because I bet you there's some Shakers that would love to read as well.
Oh
That's
yeah, I mean,
incredible.
yeah, I can. I mean, do you want me to talk about favorite Bitcoiners and stuff like that?
Yeah, please,
Or
like,
oh yeah, oh
who
you meant
you
Yuval with
Yes,
Sapiens.
yeah, you had just mentioned.
Yeah. I'll definitely. I mean, I guess we could put the links in the YouTube episode.
Now, moving past that, other Bitcoiners that you're following. So this was more broad spectrum, that book that kind of hooked you on. Is there anyone that you're following right now currently that's you're getting information from, you feel like he's valuable in the space and you can rely on stuff?
Yeah. There's definitely a few. I'd say probably podcasts, and I mean, obviously, Twitter, but mostly, for the more in depth thoughts, like podcasts and books, or and YouTube are probably the three ways that I learn about Bitcoin. Favorite. There's like a lot of them, but Balaji was one that very early on kind of piqued my interest, and I've been listening to him for a long time. Michael Saylor too, like really, really orange pilled me, especially his long series on the What Is Money podcast,
Yes.
which I very strongly recommend. So that's Robert Breedlove's podcast. I haven't read much of Breedlove stuff, but I listen to his podcast a lot. It's my favorite way to learn about Bitcoin. And the Michael, the Sailor series is really, really great, because for those who haven't listened to the podcast, it's not just like a 1 hour episode. It's like 10 1 hour episodes with the same person, and so you're able to drill really, really, really deep, um, to kind of understand their first principles and how they view the world, and
Yeah.
work your way up from there. And so he has these kind of long series with people where they start, like one start recently with he had one recently with a guy called Jason P. Lowry, who I believe is something along the lines of like the he's basically the guy researching Bitcoin, like to produce a report for the American military.
No way.
That's kind of his. I'm probably not 100% right on that, but it's something like that. And it was very cool. I mean, this guy went back to single cell organisms. Like those are his first principles. Start at single cell organisms, and then he worked all the way up from there to kind of explain his kind of unique take on Bitcoin. And it's just absolutely mind blowing when you listen to these people kind of you're able to walk through like 4 or 5 episodes of how they think about the world and how they think about Bitcoin. So that's a really great resource. Um, what Bitcoin did, getting a little bit more into. I didn't really like it at the start, but I'm getting more into it. And through that, Lynn Alden's great, Alex Gladstein's great.
Yeah.
And then in Canada, Steve Saretsky, Jeff Booth, Greg Foss, Ben BTC Sessions. These are all people I listen to as well in the podcast space.
Quite a few there. Lots to digest, and I second the Sailor series. They really break down Bitcoin in, like, a granular way that, it isn't too much to digest all at once. He kinda takes it through step by step, so you can kinda understand from the very beginning to where it is now and, like, looking forward into the future. Highly recommend that series on YouTube. Um, Earlier this week, we were chatting about our community and just how powerful an impact it has. Why don't you tell everyone about like how since joining Shakepay, you've discovered the power of community?
Yeah, it's crazy, honestly. Before I had joined ShakePay, I had never really worked in a for a company that prioritized community as a to well just to connect with their customers. And yeah, I mean it really blew my mind when I came in just how strong I often use the I use it kind of tongue in cheek, but like it's a cult, like ShakePay is kind of a cult, and that's fine, and I enjoy that myself, and but yeah, I came in and just realized there was this total cult around the product, and it's so fascinating to see how important it is for people and how engaged the community is, right? And like, it really made me kind of just yeah, I just never seen it before, and I was really like into it, like, and I got really into the community. Like, we have this news channel in Slack where it's like basically anything that mentions ShakePay out in media gets put there into a feed, and I love just going through the feed and seeing what people are saying about ShakePay, and seeing their reactions to things like shaking Sats and ShakePaid, and like now when I think about solving problems at ShakePay, almost always there's always some element of community kind of baked into my thinking as to how we can solve these problems, and ultimately like how we can delight our customers and make them happy, and do more things like shaking sats and the wait list and shake pay because they're freaking awesome and fun, and honestly like just want to maybe say a thank you to the community because it's like it's really fun to work and on something, and like be kind of like be anticipating, and like like come to work every day and be like, how can we like delight our community? That's just like a really fun job. So yeah, it's been a blast.
I completely agree. Our community is like the backbone that makes Shakepay such a great place, and everything that we do is really because of the amazing community that we have. Um, So cool. I have a big smile on my face right now. Why don't we here? I got like one last question for you, maybe a few things, and then why don't we open it up to let the community come ask you some questions? Aubrey, any advice for newcomers in this space? People maybe just joining ShakePay or people who haven't even discovered Bitcoin yet. Where would you start them on their journey? Where's the best
Yeah.
place to start?
Um, okay, maybe I'll give it like a tactical answer and then a more like a broader answer.
Yeah.
I think like um, asking the dumb questions, I think is really important. Like, what is money? Sounds like a really dumb question. It's actually a really smart question.
Yeah. Perfect
And I
answer.
think like don't be. I think, and this is what was so like what made me so interested in Bitcoin was it made me question these kind of very fundamental things. And yeah, so like ask the dumb questions, and then just be relentless in your search for an answer to it. Like it's and the reality is like all the knowledge is out there. You really just need to start with by asking the dumb questions, and then ask yourself the right questions, and then just Google those questions, and you'll stumble upon the things you need to know to answer your questions. So yeah, like just yeah, and it's lots of you know um, you'll get exposed to like podcasts, listen to the podcast, someone says something you don't understand, pause the podcast, Google that term, leads you to this other web page, and before you know it, how kind of how the economy works, so yeah, that would be my kind of high level recommendation is ask the dumb questions and then Google those questions, and then maybe a more tactical one. Like I find there's a YouTube channel that I really like, that's very underrated. But it doesn't have many views, but it's a really great way to kind of get a shortcut to all of the Bitcoin kind of I guess the Bitcoin orthodoxy. The guy is like very much a Bitcoin maxi. But if you want a shortcut to understanding, the why of Bitcoin, yeah, it's Matthew Crater. It's a Trader University, small YouTube channel, but I strongly recommend just subscribing to it. And if ever one of those YouTube videos pops up in your feed, just start listening to those videos. And when you don't understand something, he generally has other videos where he explains it in very plain language. And this has been probably the best resource for me to kind of kickstart that understanding and that learning journey.
Perfect, perfect. We'll have to link that. I haven't checked out the channel, so I'll definitely do that. Really good stuff here. Everyone listening, make sure you do some research. I think that what you mentioned, Aubrey, about just ask the dumb questions, it's super important and underrated. Like a lot of people Bitcoin is complicated, and like our money, no one can explain it easily. And so asking these dumb questions and starting from the foundation and building your way up is really the best way to it, because you can't learn about this space overnight. It takes time. There's a lot to it.
Oh yeah, it takes years. Like I've been at it for like a year and a half, and I know I haven't even barely scratched the surface. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, yeah, it's like there's no finish line.
Exactly. Every day I learn something new, and I feel like I just get deeper and deeper into this hole, or whatever you want to call it. Um, let's open up the stage. Community, now's your chance. Why don't you come on up, ask Aubrey a question? You can put your hands up, and we'll go from there. Steve, Steve0382, welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for your time today.
Hey, no problem. How
My
you doing?
pleasure.
Pretty good, are you? So Aubrey, I had one question for you. So I have been interviewing a lot of my friends who I've started Orange Pill to try to understand their thoughts on Bitcoin. As I prepare to kind of join the team and help you guys potentially join the team and help you with your journey. So I was wondering, like, I know my answer, and I'm happy to share afterwards. But I was wondering for you, what was, I guess, the point where Bitcoin kind of clicked for you, like the aha moment where you were fully orange pilled?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Um, I don't know if there was one. I keep getting orange pilled, honestly, like more and more and more. I can point to many points where I'm like, oh man, like I'm just so more orange pilled now. Like it's happened to me. There's many points at Shakepay. Um, Even like yeah, for example, just one that comes to mind. You know, we did this kind of collaboration with BTC sessions where he came into the office one time, and we were grabbing pizza with him. Mike, you were there in the
We
evening, and he's just kind of explaining to us how I kind of knew this a little bit. I didn't fully understand the extent to which the government distorts the CPI
Oh,
and
yeah.
and whatnot. And he was kind of just going deeper and deeper into it, and he was just blowing my mind. And I was like, I thought I couldn't get more orange pilled. I thought I was like, yeah, I really think this is a great thing for humanity. And then he was telling me all about this, and I'm just like, oh my god, like it just and this is what's crazy about Bitcoin, is that the more you read about it, the more everything points to Bitcoin. Like you keep reading about the problem, and then you're like, yep, that's another reason why we need Bitcoin, or Bitcoin fixes this as well. And so it's just been nonstop that. So that's like maybe an example, but yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's just been a nonstop moments like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, for me it was Jeff Booth with the price of tomorrow. That just made
Oh
the
yeah,
whole thing
Oh,
click for me.
nice. Was
Um,
it the
but
was
yeah,
it the thesis itself, or was it at any point in the book?
it was the thesis, like the fact that we made so much debt in the last 20 years, and like the GDP increase was a fourth of that, and I was like, the system can't, like, it's gonna topple. And I was like,
Yeah,
we need something like this. And I agree with you though. Like I keep getting orange pilled as I learn more about Bitcoin and everything else that it fixes and its other properties besides the scarcity.
yeah. That's really interesting. I do also like the thesis of or the technology is deflationary, whereas the fiat system is kind of like this inflationary. It's like these two kind of opposing forces.
Yeah.
I actually just finished it myself few days ago. It was a really interesting book.
Well, thanks for your thoughts.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the question.
Steve, thank you. Excellent question. DBN, come on up. The Price of Tomorrow, it was a book that really orange pilled me as well, and my girlfriend, in fact.
Yeah, I'm
That
trying to
book.
trying to
Hello?
learn from my girlfriend too.
Oh, wait. I think you hear me now, yeah?
Yep,
Yeah,
now
here
we
you
hear
good.
you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thanks again also for it's really informative. Um, yeah, I guess my question is, I came as well sort of to my understanding of Bitcoin and also orange pilling through also people like Michael Saylor and just, very slow over the course of years understanding it. But what do you think, a company like Shakepay's role is in sort of informing people and spreading this knowledge to people who aren't yet there or very skeptical about
It's
it?
a
Because I got it because I threw $100 in and then started getting interested in it. But there is a large portion of people, I think, still who you know just don't believe in it for one reason or another, not even knowing about it.
that's a really really interesting question, and it's definitely something that we speak about internally. Maybe I'll answer the question, but mind if I throw the question back at you? Like, what do you think the role of Shakepay should be in informing people about Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think it's a very hard question to answer, obviously, because anytime you're a company who has obviously something to gain by convincing people, people might be skeptical of it to some degree. But I think just education and workshops almost, and sort of creating content that is very clearly non-biased and just sort of presents the facts and trying to disseminate that as much as possible, and like you said, get people thinking about questions like what is money, because I think that's something that I never asked that question to myself until the past couple of years, and then once you ask the question, you're like, okay, actually, yes, this all these things that we consider to be true are just based off of you know delusions, like you said. um
Yeah.
so yeah, I think education is something that's really important for the general public, because I think you guys said you have 2% now of the public on Shakepay, but how do we get to 50, 60, 70, whatever it might be?
Yeah, I completely. Yeah, I think we're at close to 3% actually. I think now.
Okay,
A
cool.
little update. Yeah, yeah. But I don't know. I have man, my thoughts on this. Like, I think Shakepay, what we almost shouldn't do is just have like one person spend a small amount of their time writing blog posts. Like, I think that if we go in on it, we need to do it really well.
Hmm.
And educating people is really really hard, right? Like, you need to really dedicate. There needs to be almost an army of people building something behind it to be able to actually do it effectively, right? And I think I do think it's our responsibility. If you look at our mission, it's to usher in the Bitcoin golden age, right? So we think that there is a future where we are on a Bitcoin standard and society is better off for it. And in order to get there, um, to get to a place where people are comfortable having Bitcoin be their monetary standard, they need to be confident to do that, and for that they need to be educated as to why the current system is flawed in many ways. So yeah, I think it is definitely falls within the scope of our mission. I think the big question is how do we do it? I have a few hypotheses on this. Like, I think as people use our product, using the product in and of itself, like, I mean, I'll use the analogy of Web3. I'm not really into that stuff, but I know that, the best way to learn about Web3 is just use these products,
Hmm.
right? And so I think through our product experience, there's definitely like teachable moments and places in the experience where we can be educating our customers, like DCA, or like dollar cost averaging. So like buying a little bit of Bitcoin every day to kind of counteract against the price fluctuations. That could be a really interesting way to, like you like discover, like it's kind of like you've discovered this part of the app, and then it's like a really good teachable moment to explain to people why this is important, right? So I think in the actual product itself, there's probably room for that. um yeah, because I think that's probably almost better than this, the way that a lot of people come at it is like this top down way. They're like, you should do videos or you should do blog posts. And not only is there a lot of effort that goes into that, you need to build this kind of like army of
Hmm.
writers or this crazy video capability, which isn't really like it's not really our business, right? Like, we build software and
Hmm.
market it. So yeah, I think we need to be very thoughtful about how we do it. And the top down approach, which is kind of the intuitive approach, is not necessarily the best way. I think what would be amazing is doing it in a very kind of community driven way. So if like we could do something where community members teach other community members about Bitcoin, that would be the most ideal. I think that's probably the best solution. I don't know how to do it. If you have any ideas, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's enough content that's been produced already about what is Bitcoin, how to all these questions have been answered by tons of different people. So it's more like, how do you get people to want to ask the question? And I think that's always from, yeah, someone who's trusted. Like, if I got into it because a friend told me to look into it, and so if you can kind of propel that sort of motion rather than just producing something, where the question's already been answered by, 1,000 different YouTubers. Um, I think that's probably the most effective strategy, is just building trust.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that that's the way that people get to Bitcoin is through their friends, through the community.
Mhm.
Totally agree.
Anyway, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
DBN, excellent question, man. Thank you for that. Anyone else from the community want to ask Aubrey a question? Replicator, 7 of 9. Come on up.
Ooh, is that a Star Trek reference?
A cross between Stargate and Star Wars. Replicators are from Stargate. 7 of 9 is from Star Trek. I mean,
Nice. I used to love Stargate. I used to watch it with my dad when I was the original one, SG1, right? Or do you watch
Yes.
Atlantis?
I like Atlantis way better, but they're both
Oh,
good.
yeah. Okay, nice.
It would be. I'm not sure. I have never been to one of these meetings before, so I think I have a general like Shakepay team question, not specifically for Audrey per se, but um, it would be really cool if you could have uh, a way to group your friends. So, like, let's say if you have family members, and then you could distribute an allowance from that allowance pool to the family member based on like a percentage, like 10% for your brother, 20% for your mom, that kind of thing.
How do you hold on? So like an allowance? Is that what you mean? Like
Like,
for spending?
you know how you can send money?
Yeah.
Well, on my banking app, like TD, once a month, I can send $70 to Fido automatically. Well, in ShakePay, on the send tab, there should be groups, like groups of payments that you want to make. And one a parent could set up is an allowance. So they put $100 in there. And then once a week, it distributes $25 between however many kids they have.
Got it. Got it. That's super interesting. I will bring that back to the product team. We have an ideas channel in our Slack.
Oh,
And
cool.
so
Okay.
yeah. I will personally take this idea and drop it in there for you. I appreciate the idea.
Yeah. Grouped send, regular scheduled sends.
Right on. I love it.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Replicator.
Thank you. I'll be back.
Good to have you.
Crypto Zahara,
Yes, hello guys.
how you
Hey.
doing?
So yeah, I'm very good. Recovering from COVID, but doing
Ooh.
okay apart from that. My question, I mean, my understanding, judging by the phenomenal and well-deserved success of ShakePay, and how dedicated the community is, from what I can see, let's say on Twitter, on other platforms such as this. How do you guys, like Aubrey and also the rest of the team, how do you manage basically having to do your job, to work, to do tasks and things, and develop stuff, and also let's say having to manage the number of people who must reach out to you asking you for all sorts of things, whether like joining the team or jobs, or all sorts of questions. I was just curious about how do you manage um, this thing.
So just so I understand the question, like how do we, Shakepay has lots of customers, or how do we manage doing our jobs while answering our customers and candidates for certain jobs? Is that the question?
Yeah, like, and when I say customers, like, just people must reach out to you, like, hey, I want to work for Shakepay, or hey, I have this idea, or like this kind of interaction, which is also part of, as you said before, building a strong community, and it's something that you are very proud of. But at the same time, let's say it must. I mean, your recruiters must be kind of overwhelmed by people who want to work for Shakepay, or maybe it's just me. My understanding. Maybe it's not the case. So yeah, that's what I was curious about.
Yeah, I think the recruiters are definitely overwhelmed. I probably not every Shakepay is overwhelmed, because when you want to work at a certain company, most people will just like reach out to the recruiter, so they are
Mm.
definitely bombarded. I get bombarded because people see the word staff in my LinkedIn, and they're like, "Oh, you must have something to do with staff." So I get a ton of people reaching out to me, and when I have nothing to do with HR, I don't check my LinkedIn that often, so I'm not able to get back to everybody. So there's definitely some people that kind of fall through the cracks there. Um, yeah, I don't know if that, but we have. I think our recruiters do a great job at getting back to most people, at least give them some feedback. Even though we are pretty short staffed in that department, And I think our community team, HN and Mike over here, do a great job as well as getting back to most, if not all, of our customers when they reach out.
But all power to you, and I must just say like a big kudos for your Twitter team, because the tweets are so witty, so funny, and
I
so
know.
I don't know, it's so
HN
consistently
in the
good.
house.
It's amazing.
It's HN's alien brain. I don't know how she does it, but it's I completely agree with you. It's the most entertaining part of my feed, my Twitter feed as well.
But thank you so much, and have a lovely evening, guys. Bye.
Thank you, man.
Thanks so much, Crypto Sahara. That was awesome. Okay, well, everyone, this was an awesome, fun call. You got to meet Aubrey. Aubrey, bro, thank you so much for this. It was a
Dude,
pleasure. getting to know you a
thank
little bit
you.
more.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure, and thank you everybody for attending. I'm humbled and honored, and I appreciate the questions. And yeah, it was a blast.
Sweet. Thanks again, everyone from the community. We'll be having another Meet the Team call probably in 2 weeks' time, Thursdays at 5 p.m. We will link some of the books that we mentioned and podcasts that we mentioned in the Discord channel. Hope to see you the next Meet the Team call. Cheers.
Later.